This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, as always, our weekend show is about the two of us each nominating what we think is the biggest story of the week. We also look at the most remarkable story, the sleeper story, and our favourite story. We do try and pick a winner. We tried for some time just to decide between the two of us who was the winner, and we realised that we don't agree very often.
Nah, touch too competitive, perhaps, both of us.
Well, I'm not competitive. I suspect that might just be you, but
proving your point.
Maybe. But look, we decided that we needed to bring in an adjudicator, and there is nobody more qualified, more impartial, just more perfectly suited to the job than our Fear and Greed colleague, Adam Lang. Adam, good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
Did I butter you up enough?
No, I'm impervious to your buttering up. Thank you.
Well, can you just keep in mind that in our Safe Word show, which comes out every Thursday, Michael absolutely hammers you nonstop. And we get to the Week in Review show. He is as nice as pie.
I thought it was feedback.
Oh.
I'm nice as pie to an extent, but the fact is that last week's adjudications, Adam, were substandard. I think that
Jeez, he's going backwards quickly, isn't he?
Wow.
Okay, well, I'm gonna lay it all out there. I'm gonna win this week based on the merit of my stories that I have chosen. But I just want you to just do your best, please, and not do what you did last week, which was award it to Sean. So
Okay.
I'm proposing something of a truce on the biggest story, because I think we can all agree, all three of us could agree, that the biggest story this week has been the election. We've had 6 weeks of campaigning, 3 debates, 2 would-be prime ministers, nearly 4 million early votes cast, 1 kid flattened by the PM while playing soccer, which for me is going to be an enduring image from this campaign. What do you reckon?
Yeah, look, I agree it is the biggest story. I don't want you to be so generous, though. You're very welcome. I would agree with you. It is definitely the biggest story. But I don't mind giving you a 1-0 lead up front.
No. I'm about to win it, because I think if we accept that the election was the biggest story of the week, then let's look for the next biggest story. Because the other thing is that there were so many big stories this week.
Yeah, it was a massive week. There's
an abundance of stories to choose from. So I have chosen the next biggest story after the election, and that is jobs. On Thursday, we heard that unemployment in April dropped to 3.9%. That's the lowest in 48 years. So just to kind of give you an idea, the last time the unemployment rate was this low, ABBA won Eurovision with Waterloo. That is a long, long time ago. And to whatever way you look at it, the numbers were good. The numbers were fantastic this week, the unemployment figures. Full-time employment increased by 92,000. Part-time fell by 88,000. So people are clearly shifting from part-time to full-time jobs, and it can even go lower still. So indicators like job ads suggest that that's possible. Look what's happened in the UK. This week, they reported a jobless rate of just 3.7%. For the first time in recorded history, there are more job vacancies than there are unemployed people in the UK. And Adam, you have spoken many times about just how important it is to have a job, important to the economy, important to the family, to your own sense of purpose. So this is clearly the biggest story of the week, because that is such a fantastic set of unemployment numbers that I think it's going to be hard to go past. Sean, what have you got?
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible story, incredibly low unemployment rate. We knew it was coming. I mean, the actual, there's only 4,000 new jobs during the month. So in a sense, I would argue that it's not actually a big story this week, because it's been a big story for quite a while. I'm going with markets. Did you like that, by the way, that little slander of your story before I got into mine?
I thought it was probably fitting for the tone of today's episode.
That's right. Look, I'm going with markets. Just crazy at the moment. The swings on Wall Street, particularly this week, are absolutely massive. Target, that's the retailer over there, which is not related to the Target here, lost 25% of its value on one day. Walmart was hammered. Apple, in just 2 days, lost about $150 billion in value. That's not far off the size of Commonwealth Bank. Locally, the big retailers were hammered. Wesfarmers, which owns Bunnings, Kmart, Target and Officeworks, hit an 18-month low. Woolworths was sold off big time. JB Hi-Fi was sold off. The reason is fear of inflation along with slowing growth, and that's called stagflation. That's exactly what we do not want. It's not just equities that are being shellacked at the moment. Bond markets tumbled and then jumped sharply as investors looked for less risky assets. The Aussie dollar fell to its lowest level since the middle of 2020, 68.29 US cents. Quite incredible, the moves in markets this week. And I do think that actually is the biggest story of the week. Adam.
Very, very tough call. I'm going to give this one to Michael just. The reason is this, the 48-year record being broken, it's truly phenomenal. The markets do swing, but Sean, as you've said, rarely do they swing like this. And I think the big one for me, and Sean, you might be proving me wrong in subsequent months, is this stagflation question. I think that is massive. But the reason I'm picking unemployment is I've got this working theory. Do you mind if I just jump at it for a little bit?
Well, you gave the point to Michael, so I do mind. But anyway, go on.
Working theory is this. So much government stimulus, low interest rates, and Sean, underlying those two factors, to your point on stagflation, watch that in the coming months. But in terms of unemployment, sometimes I've wondered, how is it that we've got all these restrictions and trading issues, but we've got such low unemployment? And working theory is that companies need to employ more people to cope with a new level of leave, be that mental and physical lack of well-being, that people can't work so much. So they need to have more employees to feed their businesses. And I think that will be interesting to see if this is a more long-term or medium-term or short-term shift. So for that reason, I'm giving this one to Michael just.
Thank you, Adam.
Fair enough.
That's very good of you. I thought Sean almost deserved it for the use of the term shellacked.
Yeah, it was a good one, wasn't it? I was proud of that. Very proud.
That was a ripper. I thought as soon as he said that, I'm like, oh yeah, he's won this. Shellacked is a great word.
Could be a tiebreaker.
That's right. Now, Sean, would you like to go first for the most remarkable story this week?
Sure. In an increasingly green world, we've been talking about this for years, how we need to transition to renewables. Australia this week got itself a new top 10 company that's purely based on fossil fuels. Hard to imagine, really, that in 2022 you can end up with a bourse that one of the top 10 companies is an oil and gas group. The $63 billion company, to be known as Woodside Energy, is a merger of Woodside Petroleum and BHP Petroleum. Don't you love the way they went from Woodside Petroleum to Woodside Energy? Kind of sounds better, doesn't it? It will be the 8th biggest company on the ASX behind BHP, CSL, the big four banks, and Macquarie Group. It will be one of the top 10 oil and gas global producers. Now, around 99% of shareholders voted for the deal. It only needed 50%. It's just quite remarkable that Australia is going against the trend quite as much as we are to be so happy to be getting a top 10 oil and gas producer. Remarkable. Michael.
That is a good story. I like that one. For me, though, the most remarkable story, it is hard to go past the family that lost $34 billion in just 2 days. Of course, though, it's not any ordinary family. It's the Walton family, which is led by the 3 adult children of the late Sam Walton, who started Walmart, which is the world's biggest retailer. This week, the company cut its profit outlook. It's a low-cost retailer, doesn't want to push up prices, so higher costs on everything from products to shipping, really hitting its profit margins. The news triggered an 11% fall in Walmart's share price on Tuesday. That was its worst single-day decline in 35 years. It then fell another 7% the next day too. Now, the Waltons own about half of Walmart's shares. So the 3 surviving siblings each lost about $9 billion over the 2 days. Other family members lost $1 billion here, or $2 billion there, but they should be okay. Forbes estimates that even after the fall, the family is still worth $212 billion. I just find that kind of thing, that just the scale of that wealth and the size of that fall, I just find that remarkable. What do you reckon, Adam?
So it is remarkable, but I'm giving this one to Sean. The fossil fuel and the 2 companies both dropping petroleum from their name to create Woodside Energy, and it being a 99% win with shareholders and a new top 10 company for Australia. I think that is a massive story and it is remarkable. So, Sean, I'm giving this one to you. Michael, yep. I think that the reason why losing 9 billion each when you've still got 100, 200 billion in the bank, it's a bit of a whack, but they'll get through.
Thank you, Adam. That's very generous of you to give that to me. I gamed this one a bit, though, I've got to be honest, because during the week when we were talking about this story, you, Adam, were the person that came out with, isn't it funny that they've gone from Woodside Petroleum to Woodside Energy just to sound better? And I remembered that. So I kept it and I thought, in the weekend edition, I'll reinforce Adam's bias. And it worked.
You're being played here, Adam.
It certainly does sound like that.
That's most dishonourable. But look, okay. All right, so we're heading into halftime, 1-1. We'll be back in a moment with the sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we are now looking for the sleeper story, which is perhaps the story not getting the attention that it deserves or that might be a bigger issue further down the track. Would you like to go first?
Sure. The Australian Tax Office this week released its annual hit list of people and companies and activities it will be keeping a close watch on this end of the financial year. Didn't get a lot of attention, mostly because there is an election on. There were some big jobs numbers, as Adam's just told us, biggest story of the week, apparently, or second biggest story of the week. There was lots of moves in markets. We didn't talk much about the tax office generally, or the media didn't. But property investors and cryptocurrency traders are under the spotlight. Why is this a sleeper? Because so many Australians fit into the category of having invested in cryptos or being a property investor. They're going to be caught up. Simple as that. If the ATO sticks to its word, it will be knocking on the door of hundreds of thousands of people over the next few months to double check that what they've done is by the letter of the law. This is a massive story for a lot of people in the next quarter or two when they do their tax returns. So I think it's a sleeper of the week. Michael.
My sleeper story is really, it's about the cost of living. We've heard a lot, obviously, about the rising cost of living, and throughout the election campaign, really, there's been a lot of attention on it, but it's really been focused on interest rates and petrol prices. The whole focus of the cost of living crisis is about to shift to electricity, and we saw that starting to play out this week. The war in Ukraine, a spike in coal and gas prices, and a few other factors have really sent wholesale electricity prices soaring, and for some households, this means that their power bills are set to double. But what's even more extraordinary about this story is that some smaller power retailers like Queensland's LPE are actually writing to customers, and I quote, strongly encouraging them to find another supplier, specifically kind of one of the bigger players better able to perhaps limit or absorb some of the increase that the smaller ones have to pass on. Discover Energy in Sydney is another one, having to nearly double rates. Discover is calling on the federal government to subsidise prices and to try and help stabilise energy costs. There are fears now that smaller Australian power retailers could collapse. This, to me, is a huge sleeper story because so much of the focus on cost of living has been about petrol, has been about interest rates, but this is going to hit people hard. So many families, so many businesses, especially as we come into winter and the demand for electricity soars. I think this is a big sleeper story, this one. What do you think, Adam?
This is so tough. This is so tough.
You can't always start by saying this is so tough.
Okay.
You're an adjudicator, you know?
Accept my role.
Get out there. That's right.
Do your job. Come on.
Right. Stop saying it's tough. We pay you really well for this. Stop complaining.
So I'm giving this one to Michael.
Thank you.
The ATO one, though, only just loses for me because
you're a big cryptocurrency trader?
No.
Don't want to put any more spotlight on it.
The ATO, I think, without sort of overtly being told to, you can imagine that a government might have said to the executives at the ATO, hey, don't go too hard. We're in a COVID crisis here. There's lockdown. There's lots of business pressure. We're trying to keep the economy afloat. And so if you wondered about that and thought, hey, there might not just be 1 year of new focus on property investors and cryptocurrency investors, it might actually be 2 or even 3 years that they're going to catch up with. And I think, Sean, it's a ripper of a sleeper story. In terms of the cost of living impact, though.
Because we haven't heard much about that, have we? Go on.
Not in terms of electricity prices.
Michael's point on the electricity and on energy providers saying, look, go out and find a new deal because we think your prices are going to double, but we have to say we think everyone is going through the same problem. As soon as the election's over and coming into winter, I think this will be huge. So I do think this just wins on Sleeper of the Week.
Fair enough. No issues there. 2-1 to you, Michael, at the moment. Favourite story? I think you should go first on this one.
All right. My favourite story this week is the return of the travel industry. And there's a couple of reasons why that is occurring this week and not in other weeks, because I know that, Sean, you'll probably claim that this has been going on for a while, therefore I shouldn't have brought it up today. But early in the week, we talked about the fact that airfares are rising again, which doesn't sound so good, but part of it, of course, is that demand is rising. Airlines aren't having to slash prices to try to lure people back on board anymore. So that is good news for the industry. The other news we had this week is that Webjet returned to profit for the second half of this financial year. April was the most profitable month since the pandemic began. The travel sector has copped an absolute hammering now for more than 2 years. At last, it's coming back. And so, look, nothing too fancy for me, no kind of extravagant kind of dollar figures or big companies running overseas. This is just a simple favourite story.
You've read ahead.
No, I haven't. I'm speaking up on behalf of the travel industry, and its return is my favourite story of the week. What have you got, Sean?
It is a great story. We have to support the travel industry. My favourite story of the week was the one that came out of Bloomberg, actually. It's the collaboration between Adidas and Gucci in China. It brought out an umbrella, which it sold for about 2,000 Australian dollars. The only problem with the umbrella, and it's had a lot of complaints, is it's not actually waterproof. It doesn't stop the rain as such. So the collaboration umbrella, which sells for 11,100 yuan, got into all sorts of trouble because it just didn't work. Now, if you're paying $2,000 for an umbrella, you would expect it would actually keep out the rain. What I love most, though, was the rationalization from Adidas and Gucci. They said it was never meant to keep out the rain, this umbrella. Instead, it should be used as a shade from the sun or maybe just for fashion purposes. It's kind of like the king without any clothes on in 2022. What a laugh. No wonder that Chinese authorities are cracking down on luxury brands, and Chinese people are actually rejecting luxury brands and buying more of their homegrown products when this sort of thing happens. Favourite story because it is just so ridiculous. It's hard to believe it happened.
It absolutely is. It is. That's bizarre. I love that story. Sorry, I should not be putting any kind of words in your mouth there, Adam. Go for it.
Well,
which travel story was your favourite? I mean, sorry, go on.
I do love the Adidas and Gucci story. Consumerism at its best. I wonder if anyone actually even returned the umbrella that didn't keep the rain out. Probably not. Michael, you win this one. Return of the travel industry. I know it's not brand new, but seeing Webjet back in profit, that is fantastic. So
if you're the judge, right, and you're giving the adjudication and you say, I know it's not brand new, isn't this grounds for appeal already?
So I know it's not brand new, but Webjet back in profit is. So, and Sean, may I give an honourable mention? Although you lost 3-1, if it came to a tiebreaker, I think your use of the word shellacking would have given you the bonus point to win. So
cold comfort.
Yeah, I know. Michael, you win this one, 3-1.
Thank you, Adam. It means a lot. And thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Adam.
And just a reminder about our weekly podcast called Safe Word by Fear and Greed. Sean mentioned it earlier. It's where we have a bit of a lighter look at some of the business news around the place. It does live on its own. It comes out every Thursday. You need to search for it as Safe Word by Fear and Greed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit follow so that you get it every week. I'm Michael Thompson. Have a great weekend.